Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Overwatch League fan thoughts and analysis video. Today, we'll be going over the Season 2 Stage 3 playoffs. But before we get into that, let's take a look back at Week 5, the Atlanta Reign homestands, to see how things went down and how the last two playoff spots were taken care of and who will be playing in the Stage 3 playoffs. So we start with Saturday, July 6th, New York Excelsior beating the Florida Mayhem. It was a 3-0 win. People were a little concerned about New York. I think it was just New York choosing to prep more for Toronto than for Florida. And just kind of, they still won. It was, there was a map that was kind of close. I guess the first map was pretty close too, but I think New York looked better, especially in the second half. They looked a lot better. So to me, it wasn't that big of a worry for New York fans. I think it was fine. Next, Philadelphia Fusion took on the Washington Justice. Good win for the Fusion. Kept their hopes to be in Stage 3 playoffs alive. Also, that win eliminated both the Guangzhou Charge and the LA Gladiators from contention. Next was the Atlanta Reign taking on the Toronto Defiant, my big pick game for the day. And the Atlanta Reign won that one 3-1. So great win for them. Very good to put them in a good position to be back competing, to be in that top 12. So, very good win for them. Big weekend for them as well, of course, being the home team. Finally, on Saturday, the Guangzhou Charge defeated the Shanghai Dragons 3-1, which made the match between the Dragons and the Fusion that much bigger, because the winner of the Dragons Fusion match on Sunday would be in the playoffs. Charge looking very good this weekend. I thought they were very impressive, and they looked a lot better than what we've been seeing from them recently. Obviously, they had just lost to Shanghai, and then they come back and they beat Shanghai 3-1. So that's impressive, and I'm excited to see where they go in Stage 4. But finally, we move on to Sunday. The big pick game of the day was the Shanghai Dragons versus the Philadelphia Fusion. A 3-1 win for the Dragons locks them up for the Stage 3 playoffs. I forgot to mention that New York's victory over Florida also locked them up for the Stage 3 playoffs and locked them up for the Atlantic Division, but whether or not they would be the 1 seed or the 2 seed had not yet been decided. Next on Sunday was the Guangzhou Charge against the Washington Justice. Charge won that one 4-0. Good win for them. Very strong weekend for them. Justice finished the stage at 0-7. Their first one yet of the season. For a team that only has 2 wins on the season, it's amazing that they have not had an 0-7 stage until this point. Then we had the Florida Mayhem taking on the Atlanta Reign, with the Atlanta Reign winning that one 4-0, which was another solid win for them and put them in a very good spot in the overall standings to be competing for that top 12 spot. Sorry about that. And finally, the New York Excelsior defeat the Toronto Defiant 4-0. An incredible hold on Havana. It was absolutely insane. I don't even know how they did that on their defense. That, to me, was one of the moments where I'm not worried about New York. The fact that they barely even pushed the cart on attack because Toronto ran the Vendetta or Clockwork Vendetta comp, and New York didn't really do a lot to handle it, and then managed to hold even better on their defense against Toronto was impressive. New York locks up the number 1 overall seed in the Stage 3 playoffs with that win, and the Toronto Defiant go winless in Stage 3. I should mention in the Bren versus Baby Bay Widowmaker 1v1, Baby Bay dominated. And in the Mangachu versus Defran Torb Hammer 1v1, Mangachu came away with the win. I think I picked Defran, I don't remember. Not that that really matters, but those are really entertaining if you didn't watch them. I'd say especially watch the Torb one. The Torb one was incredibly entertaining. So that was it for the Atlanta Reign homestand. So let's take a look now at the stage standings before we take a look at the overall bracket and my picks for that. So here is the stage standings. As you can see, the only team without a loss this stage, the New York Excelsior. That gives them the number 1 overall spot in the stage playoffs. They will go up against the number 8 seed, which is the Shanghai Dragons. The Vancouver Titans won the Pacific Division. They were 6-1 plus 14. They had the tiebreaker over the Spark because they beat the Spark. And so the Titans will be playing against the Outlaws, who are the 7 seed. You have the Hangzhou Spark as the 3 seed. They will take on the LA Valiant, who are the 6 seed. And you'll have the Shock at 5-2 plus 15 as the 4 seed, taking on the 5th seeded Dynasty at 5-2 plus 12. Gladiators and the Charge are the first 2, sitting there at the bottom. This is the last time you will get to see these stage standings, because with the next video that I do for Fan Thoughts and Analysis, we'll be looking at the top 20 overall league standings, so we can get an idea of who is in the playoffs, who's competing for the playoffs. But we'll be looking back at the standings here, the divisional standings, in a little bit once we go through the bracket picks. But there's your stage standings. That is your top 10 for the stage and your top 8. Let's take a look now at my bracket predictions. As you can see here, I'm not predicting any upsets in round 1. I have the New York Excelsior beating the Shanghai Dragons, the Hangzhou Spark beating the LA Valiant, the San Francisco Shock beating the Seoul Dynasty, and the Vancouver Titans beating the Houston Outlaws. I think any team realistically can win this stage playoff. This is a very competitive stage playoff. Every team is looking incredible. I think the best match in the first round will be the Spark versus the Valiant. Whoever wins that match has a very good shot at winning the whole thing, especially. The Valiant are playing a composition that's very good. We saw the Titans lose to it. We've seen a lot of teams struggle against it. The Spark are the best team at countering what the Valiant run in the whole league. So the Spark really do have a very good chance of winning the whole thing. The Titans, I would have been a little more worried about had we not seen the amazing performance from them when they had Stitch playing the Sombra. So I don't think they'll struggle against Houston, but we did see Houston actually play decently well against them the first time they played back in Stage 2, when Houston wasn't very good. Houston didn't win a single game in Stage 2, yet they won a map and almost won, they almost made it like a 5-map set against the Vancouver Titans. So a lot of people are saying this is Vancouver has no shot, they have no chance. This could be a very good matchup. I think realistically any team could win, any matchup could win. And I should note that the number 2 seed so far in the Season 2 stage playoffs are winless. Not a single 2 seed has won a match in the stage playoffs. New York was a 2 seed in the first stage playoff. They lost to Seoul. London was the 2 seed in the second stage playoffs. They lost to Hangzhou. Could Vancouver keep that trend alive? I don't know. The number 1 seed is also undefeated in stage playoffs. So that's also something to keep in mind, though I don't expect that either of those trends to survive. I think the Shock versus Dynasty is a very good matchup, a very good series. I think it's closer than the most recent matchup these two teams had, but ultimately I think the San Francisco Shock win over the Dynasty. And I think we have our top 4 teams as the semifinalists. New York against San Francisco. I think New York is playing a little bit better right now. San Francisco doesn't play as well around that Sombra, though they're more aggressive than some of these other Sombra teams are. New York is not incredibly aggressive. I think it's a close series, but I think New York walks away with that one. Hangzhou versus Vancouver. That one could go either way, realistically. But I think the improvement... we saw Vancouver beat Hangzhou, and they weren't playing Stitch at that point in time, and they beat them, and it was a very close series. Hangzhou, obviously, they still struggle on those assault maps, and that's really kind of where I think the problem will lie for them, is they are struggling on assault and hybrid attacks. So I think Vancouver wins that one. Then I think we have New York versus Vancouver in the finals, and I think Vancouver wins just because they have looked very good with Stitch in, and that was with very little time to prepare. Now they have an entire week off to prepare, and I think they win this one. But there's been upsets every single stage playoff, so I would expect that to be the same this time around as well. I could see any team really making the finals. I mean, I could see the Valiant beating the Spark, I could see the Dragons beating the Excelsior, I could see the Outlaws beating the Titans, the Dynasty beating the Shock. I mean, this is the best stage playoffs I think we will ever see. I don't think the 3 that we've kind of considered the elite teams are as far ahead of any teams anymore as they used to be. Every team is beatable. Every team can win this stage playoffs, and I'm incredibly excited to see how it goes. But I'm hoping, of course, my boys are the ones that walk away victorious. Let's finally take a look at the divisional standings. And there's some interesting stuff here, some playoff spots that have already been locked up for the season, and some changes in the standings. As you can see, New York Excelsior are underlined, as are the Titans and the Shock. The underlining means that they have guaranteed themselves a spot in the top 12. So New York and San Francisco and Vancouver, the worst that they can do is play for that play-in spot. The Vancouver Titans, though, have actually locked up a top 6 spot, which is why they are bolded. The Vancouver Titans will be in the playoffs, not just the play-in playoffs, the playoffs, the top 8. Vancouver is guaranteed to be a top 6 team, but San Francisco and New York are not. New York, I believe, is 1 win away. If they win one more match, they should be locked up in that top 6, but we'll have to wait and see. As you can see, the London Spitfire have retaken the number 2 spot in the Atlantic Division after the Fusion's 1 week. So the Spitfire are back in that spot of holding on to their own destiny, but they're starting to fall behind because you still have the Shock that are ahead of them. You have the Spark that are now 2 games ahead of them. The Gladiators are a game ahead of them. The Dynasty are ahead of them on differential. So they're sitting there in the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're in the 7 spots. They're right on the outside of the top 6. They are a little bit ahead of a lot of these teams. And they actually are in a very dangerous spot, I will say. So very important to look at these teams and where they are. And, they're very close to Shanghai as well. Shanghai is kind of challenging them a little bit, though they are still behind them by a little bit. It's a very close behind for them. They're only a few differential behind them. So very, very close here. A lot of teams really kind of competing. You can see the Reign have jumped up. They've jumped over the Outlaws with their 2 wins this week. And in the league standings even, obviously you can see the Valiant below the Charge. The Valiant and the Outlaws are now really on the outside of that top 12. They have to really punch their way up and really compete to try to get up there. It'll be difficult, but the Reign right now are kind of in the controlling seat for that number 12 spot. They really kind of decide what happens. They're the 11 spot, and the Chengdu Hunters are at 12. So if the Charge or the Valiant or the Outlaws want to make it into the top 12, they need to get some wins coming in. The Outlaws, I think, have a very good chance. But the problem is, I don't think the Outlaws play anybody ahead of them in the standings. I can double check. They might play the Fusion still, but it's very difficult to say for sure what is going on here. Philadelphia and Guangzhou have a match, so that'll kind of help. Houston has another game against Paris. That could help. They do have to play the Gladiators, the Outlaws do, so they have some games against teams ahead of them, but not a lot, and not ones against some of the lower teams. The Fusion is the big game for the Outlaws going forward. They have to play the Justice. They have to play London. So they have some games ahead of them against some of these teams that they definitely need to win if they want to have a chance. They have to play Chengdu. They have some tough matches ahead of them that if they can win them, they can put themselves in a position to be competing for that title in playing for that top 12. It's very difficult for them. I'm very excited to see Stage 4. There's going to be a lot of really fun stuff in Stage 4, I think. It's going to be a great stage. But that is everything I have for you. Sorry this video is coming out a little late. I was a little busy. And sorry for all the coughing and pausing and whatnot. But I'm going to get out of here. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.